Now it gives me the honor and pleasure to introduce our Shaykh, Abdallah Idris Ali. He doesn't need introduction to a lot of people, but maybe some people did not see him, did not hear him. He spoke in this country thousands and thousands of times. And maybe there is not a single state or a center he did not contribute to the foundations, to the creation, foundation, and promotion. Shaykh Abdallah Idris, you can read his short biography here on page, does this page have a number? Yeah, on page 19. So he is from Sudan. Allah yahfaz Sudan, ya Rab. So I'd like him to join me here. And he flew from Toronto to address us tonight.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. الحمد لله حمدا يكافئ نعمه ويوافي مزيده، لا نحصي ثناء عليه هو كما أثنى على نفسه. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، أشهد أن محمدًا عبد الله ورسوله الأمين ورحمته للعالمين، صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, our children, our grandchildren, again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. When Dr. Amin called me to come here, I asked myself these questions. Why me? Alhamdulillah, in Chicago, in the Universal School, there are so many people who made a lot of contribution, even much more than us. And I said to myself, maybe because he might be convinced that Islamic education runs in my blood, and that's the only thing that brought me here. And actually, I mean it. So I want to start by saying to him, Jazakallahu khairan for the invitation, and Jazakallahu khairan for making me part of this, inshallah, celebration of your 25th anniversary. And also, I don't want to forget Sister Suzanne, who kept calling me and sending me emails, Shatara, and all the people who actually made it easier for me to come here, and my dear brother Abdallah, who's hosting me, Abdullah Sadiq here. But let me tell you this. I asked a question when I was sitting here about where are the students of Universal School. And I was given this list. Some went to Harvard University. Some people went to UL University, Princeton, University of Chicago, Northwestern, Brown University, MIT, Illinois University, Loyola, and DePaul. Now, last year, we graduated 46 students from the University of Toronto, from our school in Toronto, the Eastern School, which is, we call it the twin, although we are a little bit earlier than you, because actually next Saturday, we are celebrating our 30th anniversary of the Islamic School in Toronto. There is a little difference between Chicago and Toronto, because now in Toronto alone, we have 14 full-time schools, we have 3 high schools, and our schools are on the top of every school. Come to Toronto, go to the internet, go to Fraser Institute, that evaluates the schools, and you'll see the ranking of the Islamic schools that we have. We also have students, mashallah. If you go to the Upper Law Society of Canada and see who are the most influential 25 top lawyers in Canada, one of them was a grade 3 student in my school. If you go to University Hospital in Toronto and ask who the head of the oncology department, a kid who was in grade 4 with the school. By the way, I left the school 17 years ago now, and I have been a principal of that school for 17 years, which means 34 years passed, and you can imagine who are these kids in. So we passed that thing when we appeal to Muslims and tell them what is the schools and what kind of struggle. This story of having the basements repeats itself. I remember we were in a basement. We started actually in the basement of an old mosque. The oldest mosque was a Presbyterian church. And I remember when we told people about the school, we had cockroaches and rats and name it. And people used to tell us all kinds of things. Why do you deprive your children of the biggest schools and the schools that have all this, especially Canadian schools, by the way? and I'm not going to say this because now I'm a Canadian, but Canadian schools are relatively more luxurious than the American school. Because I spent 10 years here in the States, and I used to go for certification and for what we call it, accreditation, and visit the schools, private, and schools in Canada are much more because it's a new country. However, at that time I used to tell the people, listen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمْكُمُ اللَّهِ. Fear Allah, don't ask about how Allah is going to educate you. And now there isn't any father or mother. And alhamdulillah, we have a big problem now because we almost prepared a generation of teachers. Before we look for one certified teacher, now we interview 7 or 8 to get one teacher we want. We have all these young, mashallah, scholars who are doing their PhDs in education. All of them graduated from the Islamic school, from that bracket of 2% of people we have. This is about the Islamic school. But the Islamic school is not what we are looking for. We are looking at the wider concept of Islamic education. I say this and I say it, and alhamdulillah, I said when I began, I said alhamdulillah, hamdan yukafi'u ni'ama, that we lived to see students graduating from the schools, becoming professionals and all of this. I want to see a day when Muslim education becomes the top education in the world. And we have that potential. We do have a treasure in our hands. That's the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sadaq Allah. أنزلنا عليك الكتاب, he says to the Prophet, تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. He says to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, we sent down the book for you to explain everything that you need to know. And then he says guidance, hudan, is a mercy and it's a glad tiding for Muslims. And we are just at the tip of that glad tiding of it. What we want to say tonight, inshallah, is to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward each and every one who made any contribution to these schools. The people who planned it, the people who contributed to it, the people who sacrificed to it, the parents who entrusted their students with our schools, the principals, the teachers, everyone who contributed anything to these schools, Allah alone will reward them. And to be grateful to Allah that we live to see it so far, and we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us even life to go further than this. I always mention this to people to tell you, at one time I was told 25 years ago that I have a lifespan of 5 years by top doctors. And now I'm living, I don't know for how long, but I'm going to tell you this. I pray from the bottom of my heart that Allah show us when these schools become the schools that nobody can compete with them. And by the way, Toronto, out of 3,700 schools, public and private, our schools top all the list. And this is why it no longer became a problem for Muslims to say that this is what they wanted to say. What we saw in our children, the children that you have, we didn't see it ourselves. What we want for them, and I always say this, two people, all the time want to see the people under their care to be better than them. 1, parents. 2, sincere teachers. You want to see all these kids in front of you. MashaAllah now, even they became a resource for us. Wallahi, last night, I have a class. I came last night here. Have a class on Tuesday, my tafsir class. Brother Safa knows what I have in Toronto for the last 10 years. Because I told Muslims we need to sit down to find out what Allah is saying to us in this Quran. Convince parents, professionals, intellectuals, that we should sit down and study the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last class, we finished Surah Al-Kahf. And a mother came to me. She said, Shaykh, this is my son's zakat money. I brought it to you because he was 4 years when I brought him to your school. And wallahi, when I opened the envelope, it was $10,000. Imagine a student whose zakat money for a year is 10,000 money. You can make the arithmetic and see what it is. Last 3 months, we did a fundraising for one of the schools called Olive Grove, one of our MAC schools in Toronto. One of our students who graduated from the school started the donation with $100,000. Wallahi. Wallahi, last Ramadan, we raised about $500,000 in the school. And 4 of my students, they brought me a piece of paper saying, Ammu, you gave us a lot. Here, $100,000, we put it together for you. So these kids that we see them, they are going to benefit even the students who are coming after them. And they're going to build the communities. If we can enlarge this base of our Islamic schools, keep sacrificing. Put some schools to be in the forefront that can bring the confidence that Muslims lack in themselves. And alhamdulillah, Universal School is doing that. It's bringing that trust in Muslims. We don't have much to do with our own selves. We doubt our work, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us day and night that we can do what we wanted to do, and that our children inshallah are going to carry it further. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all the parents, all your children, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show us the best in it, and may Allah reward you multiples of it. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.